Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. There is a new news talk station in Eastern Connecticut and also a new morning host for that station. So we'll learn about the station and meet the host, Lee Elci, when we come back. So stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today has been on TV before and has been on radio in the business for many years, and he's now the host of a new FM news talk station in Eastern Connecticut. First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it.
You and I have been working in radio together on and off for many years, and before we get to that, I just kind of want to introduce people to you and talk about your humble beginnings, because it wasn't just radio for you. You were a professional athlete. So let's go back even before that. Maybe how far back do you want to go? Maybe college
Little
days?
League?
Little League is a little far. You hit a couple of home runs and then moved your way on to high school and stuff.
First of all, again, thank you so much for asking me on this show. I've been looking forward to it for a while. You want to go back? We go back probably to college, even before that.
What college you go to?
I originally went to Clemson University, transferred from Clemson to Old Dominion, believe it or not, which is down in Virginia.
Isn't that a good baseball school?
Yeah. Both of them are really good baseball schools. In fact, Old Dominion was better. They were like fifth in the nation when I was playing there, so we had a lot of national recognition. It was an interesting time, but yeah. So I ended up going there. My whole life was always focused on being a baseball player. So high school, college, all baseball, all sports.
Now you were did you get a scholarship to school?
I did.
Okay.
I did, and so I played at both places. And after my senior year, I ended up getting offered a contract to play with the St. Louis Cardinals.
Let me back up for a second, because I want to know why you switched from Clemson to Old Dominion.
It's the simple explanation is this: as a freshman at Clemson, they wanted to do what they call redshirt me. Which,
right.
If nobody knows anything about sports, you sit out your freshman year, which is supposed to give you an advantage on the backside in your senior year. But I didn't really want to be a 23-year-old. My whole focus was to play baseball. That's really all I really wanted to do.
And when you're an athlete, your time is somewhat limited. I mean, that's a year off of your career for all intents and purposes.
Absolutely. So I thought that far ahead and said, that's not the way I want to go. So I made the move to go to Old Dominion, which was, an equally, at that time, as powerhouse of a baseball school. So that's where I ended up going, signed the contract with the Cardinals after my senior season, and wound up playing a couple seasons there.
Now, when you opt to transfer, do you lose a year of eligibility when you do that?
You do. In fact, what I had to do before I went to Old Dominion was to take actually 2 semesters and go to a junior college.
Really?
So that's how I kept my eligibility.
Oh, okay.
So you keep your eligibility by switching. So I went from Clemson to a real good baseball junior college in Florida, and from Florida into to Old Dominion.
Now, when you're heavily recruited, but it doesn't work out for you and you want to go somewhere else, what do you do? Do you call up schools and say, "Hey, I'm pretty solid, and would you be interested in me?"
Well, what ends up happening at that point, you pick up the phone and you say, "Listen, it's not working out for me at Clemson. I want to come there. How do we go about doing that?" And then there's a number of schools that say, "Okay, we want you," or "We don't want you. It's too late now." And Old Dominion was one of the ones that says, "Yeah, let's do it this way. This is how you got to get here and keep your eligibility." So. And
when they may ask a question, well, what do you mean it didn't work out? They might pause for a second, or are you trouble or anything? But redshirting is not really.
Sure.
That's completely understandable. A kid just may not want to be redshirted.
Yeah.
Did Clemson tell you about this? I mean, was that a possibility?
No, they never said anything about that to me when I was recruited by them. And it's funny that you say that, because a lot of schools do get skeptical, and I think that's rightfully so, because I'm sure they run into that problem all the time. What are your head case? What are your problem? Why can you transfer from one to another? But for me, it was really as simple as, I think I'm on a ticking time clock here. I want to get my pro career started, if possible, as fast as I can. And that's kind of the way I approached it.
Now, don't major league teams prefer that you play instead of college in their minor league system?
It depends. Sean, it's about what kind of a prospect that you are, how well you're developed. I mean, now they're drafting kids and giving them millions of dollars right out of high school. I mean, they've been doing that for a while.
Yeah.
But I would say if to getting into the pro program as fast as you can is always going to be a positive because
Right.
they're going to give you a little bit of extra time. But a lot of these pro teams now are looking at these college programs like LSU, South Carolina, these big
The
time
heavy hitters, yeah.
That's almost a minor league program, and they look at it as a really quality program. You come out of a school like UCLA or something like that, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
You know?
I was thinking, I just watched Moneyball, the movie, the other day, and Billy Bean had a full scholarship to Stanford.
Right.
And they said, well, can he still go and take your offer? They said, no, if he'll have to join our system
Right.
or take the college scholarship. So you signed, so what happens? You're in college and you get offered to sign by the St. Louis Cardinals?
It actually didn't happen as atypical for me as it does for anybody else who gets a chance to sign. I missed the draft. I didn't get drafted. There's a June draft for amateurs, and my junior year came and went. I didn't get drafted, and my senior year came and went. And even though I had a pretty good year, I didn't get drafted. So what happened is I had to keep fighting, and I decided, you know what, I have literally a 3 or 4 month window here to get something done. So I went from Old Dominion to play in Alaska, which is
wow. They have baseball in Alaska?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's equal
Ice
to the
ball.
Cape Cod League.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cape Cod League is excellent, by the way.
So Alaska's where all the California kids go to play, equal to the Cape Cod League. So I went up there and played, and I played for a month, did really well, and I got a call from I got a call from the Cardinals, the Angels, and the Expos, all in like a 3-day span.
Wow.
And
it's like feast or famine.
Well, I agreed to the St. Louis Cardinals first before, so that's
because you figured that was the only offer.
Oh
that was
yeah,
gonna come in.
yeah, I'm coming. Let's go.
So you basically signed as a free agent then, as opposed to getting drafted.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Yeah.
So what happened? So now you're a St. Louis Cardinal.
Yep. I went to Hamilton, Ontario, which is up about 70 miles south of Toronto, and I played in the New York Penn League. Had I didn't really have a great first month or two of the season.
Is that single A ball?
Yeah.
Because we had our guy from the Connecticut Tigers on, and they're in the Connecticut. The Penn.
Yeah,
League.
same exact league as that. So I was in that league, and I had not a great season, not a terrible season for your first year.
What position, by the way?
I was catcher. I signed as a catcher. So I played. I got about 150 at bats, I think, my first year, and I hit a few home runs. Hit about 230. They asked me to come back to spring training. I went back to spring training. I was actually on the AA roster for a little while, but due to they moved guys down, and so I ended up going to Springfield, which is the Midwest League. Had actually a pretty good half a season in the Midwest League. They moved me up to the Florida State League, and I ended up in the Florida State League. I didn't do well at all. And then I got right around Christmas time, I got a nice Christmas present from the Cardinals saying, "Yeah, thanks a lot."
Now, could you have continued to fight at that point?
Yeah, but it's looking back on it, Sean. It's probably the biggest mistake that I ever made. I think is I went down to Florida to go to a couple of tryout camps after I got released. And I was 24, and I went to a Yankee camp, and I went to another camp, and then it's such a frustrating process. Because what you do is, in these camps, you run, you throw from the outfield, and then they give you like 3 or 4 swings. Well, my strength has always been hitting. So if I don't get an ample opportunity to shine in that time, I don't feel as though I'm going to get a chance to sign.
Not to mention you were a catcher too.
Yeah. So long story short is I ended up going to a couple of tryout camps, and if I'd gone to a couple more, I would have stayed. I stayed with it, and I would have got signed sooner or later. But I kind of got defeated. I was a little bit, down, if you will, and I just said, you know what, that's it. And then, a year later, I ended up wanting to play again, and I actually played in Europe and Australia after that. So,
what's baseball like in Europe? I mean, it doesn't seem like it's big. Like it would be soccer over here, baseball over there.
I mean, the league I played in was in Amsterdam, Holland, and it's the Holland's highest league, but each team's allowed 2 Americans, and they paid us. And the league was competitive, but it really was probably about as good as like maybe Division II college baseball. It wasn't great.
Now, are scouts actually going to those games?
There were some people there. I mean, but not necessarily for people like me. At that age, I was 26. I was done. At 26, you're pretty much done. There were some kids that could play a little bit that ended up, playing in pro ball over here. We had a catcher who was really, really good. And of course, a lot of those guys, they're geared for their Olympic, at that time, the Olympic team, which was huge for them. So that's what they were playing for. But, the baseball was much better actually in Australia than it was in Amsterdam.
Did you play at any point in your career with any guys that really kind of made it big?
Oh, yeah. Tons of guys. I mean, off the top of my head, I played with John Olerud, Brian Jordan.
As a teammate?
Oh, yeah. Brian Jordan. Actually, it's funny. When we were in the Midwest League, Brian Jordan batted fourth. I batted fifth on that team.
So you were the Bash brothers, right?
Not really, because he bashed. I didn't bash that much. I tell the story that he hit a lot of home runs that year. And what happens in the minor leagues is like you have to show how tough you are. So somebody hits a home run off you, the pitcher inevitably hits the next guy. I must have got hit like maybe 8 or 9 times that year.
So you got
to knock the next guy down. Yeah.
You don't want back-to-back homers.
Yeah, sure.
When we were talking to our Connecticut Tigers guy the other day, you could be in a playoff run in one of those leagues, and the major league team will try not to poach because they want you to be successful too in your league. But sometimes it happens. You can really get the rug pulled right out from under you.
When I was playing in the Midwest League, that's kind of what happened to me. I was having a decent season, and I got called into the manager's office, and we were actually in a playoff run, and they said, "Listen, we're moving you up to the Florida State League." They're in a playoff run, and they needed an extra player. So that's what ended up kind of happening to me. I lost, all the friends that I had made. I had to leave them. You have no choice. There's nothing you can do.
Since you are a baseball player still, even, and you were. What are your thoughts on the state of Major League Baseball these days?
I think Major League Baseball is as popular as it's ever been. I mean, people go to the parks in record numbers. The ratings are high. There are now baseball channels. There's that high def baseball channel I can't get enough of. Listen, I still love it. I love the game. I'm all about it. I watch it just about every night during the summer. So it's still my first. It's my first love.
The major MLB network has an advantage because you can hot stove it all winter long, so there's stuff to do on it. All the steroid stuff, the juicing stuff.
As far as whether it brought the game down, I think, Sean, with the steroids, people are just going to have to accept that there's a block of time in the history of Major League Baseball that steroids are going to be linked to. And
should those guys go in the Hall of Fame?
I think they really should, to be honest with you, because you just got to accept that that's what happened. Not only were there pitchers on it, there were hitters. I mean, hitters were on it and pitchers were on it. So, how do you determine? And how do you say to one guy, listen, I think you did it, but there's no proof? Like a Jim Thome's got 600 home runs. He came into the league as a skinny kid. He's a monster now, but no one's ever, accused him. But are they going to keep him out of the Hall of Fame because he played in this era? Maybe. Same goes for Bagwell. Same goes for some of these other guys. So to me, I think you just got to say, listen, if the numbers say he's a Hall of Famer, you got to let him in.
And all the allegations of Lee Elci, we won't get into that. We're going to take a break. What's your opinion of the whole Bill James stuff? Do you buy into that at all?
I buy into some of it, Sean. I know you mentioned the movie, which was a great movie.
It was a great movie.
Pitt was great in that. Yeah. I think there's a lot to it. I think, obviously he had great success. He still has success. Getting on base is a key factor. Bill James, he has kind of changed the fabric of baseball. There's no question about it.
Teams that have been successful, like the Boston Red Sox, have utilized him.
No question.
And so there's something to it. Well, we're going to segue away from baseball and into Lee Elci's media career when we come back. So stay with us. We've got a lot more to get to. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. We'll be back. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today is Lee Elci. Had a fairly prominent baseball career, and now he's in the media. Now he has his own radio show. There's a new FM news talk station in Eastern Connecticut, and of course everywhere online. So we talked about your baseball career in the first segment. Did you basically decide when you decided to give up baseball, a career in media was going to be it for you?
No. I went from baseball. And as you can probably imagine, I floundered. I mean, I was lost. It's like, someone pulled your dream away. You got close, kind of close.
But a lot further than most people who have the dream.
Yeah, but then somebody came along and said, well, now you got to find something else. And that was hard. And I ended up kind of bouncing around. Never really thought for a second in my life that I would ever do radio full time. Never really occurred to me, interested me as a kid growing up. But somehow I ended up hooking up with Franco, who gave me a job. Ultimately, that job ended up turning into an overnight gig.
Now, Franco was a prominent morning show guy in southeastern Connecticut for many years. Now, my first thought is when an athlete leaves his profession, and a lot of them do go into the media, they go into the sports media.
Right.
That makes sense.
It does, and the problem with that is you can't get a job in the sports media.
It's tough.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
So
you got to be a big, really.
Yeah, and unless you really, it's different, I think, now, Sean, than it was maybe 10, 15 years ago. Now there are so many different outlets for kids that would have been my age. You go to ESPN and you work, editing tape, or you go to the Major League Baseball network and you compile stats, and you eventually try to work your way up. And I would have done all that. I would have been happy to do all that, but there really was no avenues for that. So I ended up, going into the music radio type and to being a DJ. And that actually is funny because that led to the other jump that I made, which was I went from that to acting. I have a cousin who is a successful, tremendous actress in New York City, and I ended up beginning to go to classes, taking acting classes in New York City. This is 16 years ago now. And I started knocking on doors and trying to get interviews and auditions, and I ended up landing a recurrent role, maybe 5 times a month on As the World Turns, which was kind of neat.
Yeah, you get to say you were in a soap opera.
So yeah, I taught dialogue. I had a character. My character's name was Teddy. So it was.
Did you do any acting? Ever done any acting
Never.
before that? So
Never.
you didn't have any professional
Nothing.
training at it.
I started again. Basically, Sean, my cousin said, "Come on down, see this acting class, see if you like it." Went down, loved it, and I started just getting in my car 3-4 times a week, going to New York, learning.
You really
all
got to
this
schlep it. When
it
you're
was
doing
brutal,
that.
brutal. And I'd sleep on our couch some nights when I had an audition the next morning. But I really enjoyed that. But what ended up happening is you just couldn't make a living on it.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough money. I mean, even being on the soap a couple times a month, it just wasn't enough. So
did you have to have a union card and everything?
yeah,
like that?
I belonged to SAG and after the whole thing. And I ended up getting a call to get a full-time job back here in radio, and I had to kind of weigh the decision. And I said, you know what?
You got to pay the bills
I'm
sooner
gonna
or
pay the
later.
bills.
Yeah, sooner or
Be
later.
an adult.
And it was a music format and top 40, right? Is that
Well, when I came back, I got the job at the Wolf.
Okay.
Which was I did the mornings at the rock radio station, which is in the Mohegan Sun, and from that kind of transferred into a talk station, and now to where I am.
And you didn't really have necessarily any experience in radio either when you got that. So acting and radio, your contacts, connections, friendships, and name recognition helped you out.
I think the first job I got in radio was kind of a combination of a couple of different reasons as to why I got the job. I think you nailed them right there. Not necessarily any kind of radio talent, but I knew people. I could do an interview with anybody. I could pick up the phone and call. I had a lot of friends, and that's kind of what they were looking for for that show in the mornings up at the Mohegan Sun, one of those kind of deals. So I ended up getting that, and heck, now it's 12 years later since I first got that job, and I'm still doing it. I love radio now.
I want to fast forward a little bit because I want to talk about the transition from music radio, which I do, a morning show, to news talk. So talk about how it happened, and then I want to really get into the guts of your show.
It happened kind of by accident. It was somebody who had a news talk show lost their gig. It was a brand new show, and he got railroaded out of town. Anyway, bottom line is he ended up losing his position, and I said to myself,
you were training. I mean, you were kind of.
I was kind of training to be a fill-in, but Murph, I looked at myself and I said, I can't be a 50-year-old guy spinning records on a rock station. I want to try to do something a little bit different. I want to expand my value. So I decided to start filling in on the talk show, and it was impossible. It's so much harder.
Oh God, yeah.
Than it is doing.
You can't use songs as a crutch.
Nothing, and you have to fill. Like I tell everybody, if my clock says I got to fill 9-10 minutes of time,
there's nothing else you could do except talk or beg to have callers call in.
Exactly.
That really helps too.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
But the jump was really hard, and then to do political talk was even harder because.
Were you plugged into the political scene?
Not a lot. I mean, I've always been interested in that, And I've always watched the televisions and paid somewhat attention, but not really plugged in. So what I ended up doing is when I got the job doing mornings at this other radio station, I just said, you know what, you've got to do better. And I just started to watch every television show, read every article.
You wanted to be informed.
I knew every play. I learned every player in the game. I learned everything about everything as much as I possibly could in this short period of time. And I incorporated that into the show by, I brought on a lot of guests, a lot of experts, and it worked.
Now, you don't have to be smart. You just have to be well informed. And if you're really doing a good job and you have good guests, they kind of can carry it for you,
No question.
I always say the best shows are the ones where first of all, the guest has the gift of gab because, as you know, being a host, if they're giving you one-word answers, especially in your format, News Talk, you're dead. You got to fill the time. So, and usually the guest is the expert on the topic that they're talking about. So I'm going to fast forward again a little bit. They kind of juggled you around a little bit, bumped you over to AM.
Yep.
And not a lot of coverage there, unfortunately. Right. Small AM.
Yeah, I mean, those of you who follow it at all, I mean, I was on an AM station here in New London. First I was on an FM station, which covered pretty good half of the state. They switched it due to corporate switch in format. They put me on a much smaller AM station.
Same show, just less people could hear it.
That's exactly right. I mean, everything was the same. They treated the actual nuts and bolts of the business treated me very well, but I wasn't getting the reach that we had. I mean, it was a small station. I felt like I needed to do a little bit more. Full Power Radio came along, made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and from then on, I'm very, very happy with this move. It's really exciting because this station that we're on now, which is 94.9, is extremely powerful. We cover a good portion, a good chunk of the state of Connecticut. Long Island gets a lot of coverage as well, so it's all good.
So let's talk about the show specifically. What kind of guests do you have on? I would imagine it's a variety, and what do you guys talk about?
Every day is a little different. Every day I have a certain guest that's scheduled, a time slot. Now, I have a 3-hour show, so no guest is ever more than a half hour. So basically I'll have, writers from the day, writers from the Bulletin. Every once in a while, Kevin Hogan from CBS comes on. I have captains from the military, and there's somebody from Patch.com, Melissa Bass, who joins me. I'm going to forget people, but there's somebody different every day. But that really only covers, the guest portion only really covers about maybe 40% of my show on any given day. The rest I have to do with what's going on in the news. So every show is a little bit different. It'll have a lot to do with what happened in the news the day before. Like today we had a lot of discussion about the cops in the state of Connecticut not happy with the union situation and not happy with the amount of cops that are on the road. It's always something different.
Now, as we tape the show, on this particular date tomorrow, the big healthcare stuff goes down. Are you going to be talking about that on your show a lot tomorrow?
Yeah, no question about that. No question. So it's like I said, I have doctors on. Dr. Alessi is one of my guests. He is fantastic. I could, there's a laundry list of people that I would like to thank. And I've always thought, Sean, and I know you probably agree with me on this, and I don't look at myself as anyone who has a tremendous amount of skill or talent. I just look at somebody. I've been lucky enough to surround myself with really good people.
Right.
And I do have opinions on a lot of things. I certainly, voice my opinions. I've been lucky that nobody has ever tried to shut me up. No station, no management, nothing. So it's all worked out. But no question that my success comes from the people that I surrounded myself with.
You mentioned your opinion. Now you have a lot of guests on, and they certainly have opinion, and you want them to. And sometimes if you have more than one guest, or I don't know if it ever gets heated with discussion, but you have to really be as the host, you have to really be a traffic cop. Control it. Decide, this is enough of this. Let's move the topic along.
Right.
Let's speed it up. And so you have to do that. Are you, as the host, allowed to have an opinion?
Oh yeah, that's what it's. Talk radio is all opinion based.
Right.
I have to have an opinion.
Do you alienate a certain portion of your listeners?
I don't think there's any question about it. I'll get dozens of emails every day with people either scolding me or disappointed with me in a certain subject that we discuss. I mean, today I had somebody who was really upset that I took a lot of shots at Linda McMahon, for example. We had Christopher Shays on just the other day. We were talking about him and the confrontation that he's had with her. It's always something different, but no, there's no question. My opinion is paramount to the show. People will tune in to hear what I have to say about things. Now, right or wrong, I'm going to say what I think, and I'm not going to try to be one-sided
or
to make people happy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, it's funny because if you disagree, or if somebody disagrees with you, they're more apt to tune in and listen and maybe call in, because what's there to do if they, hey, I agree with them, and then you move on. You actually want them.
Right.
So, talk to me about, because you have a variety and you run the gamut on guests and you're talking about lots of issues, and a lot of them have to do with the state, obviously. So let's talk, in your opinion, about the state of the state right now.
It's the state of Connecticut, with the amount of debt that they have, and I mean, federally it's obviously way more, but if you want to talk about the state of Connecticut, I actually have been in somewhat of a feud with Governor Malloy.
And that's the other thing. There are some people, some prominent guests, that won't come on your show
true.
Because of your opinions.
That's exactly right. I mean, listen.
He's been on my show, by the way, numerous times, just so you know.
The governor, well, they never return any of my emails, never return any of my phone calls.
For you.
The mayor of New London, same way.
Right, because you said something on the radio.
I mean, let's put it this way. I am center right. I'm a fiscal conservative. I would consider myself a social moderate.
You just don't want to use the liberal word at all.
Well, no, I'm definitely not a liberal.
Yeah.
But to me, I always consider myself very fair on the air. In fact, I will ask anybody, like I've had Courtney on my show a million times. I'll ask Courtney a question. If Courtney gives me a bogus answer or a runaround, no, actually, you know what, Sean, I'll ask him again.
Okay.
And then if he still gives me the runaround, I'll move on, because I don't have time to waste. I know my listeners and callers are smart enough.
They won't buy it.
They figured it out.
Right.
For me to get into a confrontation with Joe does nobody any good, because now Joe doesn't want to come on anymore.
Right.
And people can't get any information. Now with Governor Malloy, maybe he just feels as though it's not a significant enough of a time period for him to have any kind of frustration. As far as the mayor of New London, we may have gone a little overboard with him at times. So there are times when we attack like a pit bull, but most of the time it's more of, okay, my listeners and callers are smart enough. You don't want to answer that question, I'm not going to ask you a third time.
We are out of time.
We are?
We are.
It should be an hour show.
It should be. We have so much.
Your talents?
See, it's so smooth, man. It was so smooth. Now, we're going to put the graphic up on the screen for your radio station. What's on the website? Just show stuff? And
well, because it's such a new place, the website's kind of under construction. You can go and you can listen to it live online if you want.
Oh, so and the Facebook page, too. There's a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah, like me on Facebook or friend me on Facebook, and you'll get all kinds of stuff that happened during the show, right as they happen. So,
Lee Elci, new news talk station, 94.9 WJJF in Eastern Connecticut, and also former ball player and friend of mine in the industry for many years. Thanks for being on the show.
Sean, thank you, buddy.
And thank you for joining us for another edition of For the Record. I am Sean Murphy. See you next time. Take care.